starting to put my sky in, which you're not going to really see much of, but I do have to put it in. And I'm just using this paint right out of the tube. I'm not using any walnut oil to thin it down. The only reason why is because when I start putting the leaves on the trees, it's just going to make it easier for me to for the paint to stick, and it won't get muddy. Because if I started using walnut oil on this blue, with this blue doing the sky, when I started doing the leaves, it's going to they're kind of going to blend together. It's going to get muddy. So I'm basically like leaving it pretty thick and dry. Plus it'll dry quicker this way too. Not worrying too much about the sky because you're not going to see much of it when I'm done with it. Here I used a little bit of walnut oil, just a little bit, just to thin it down, just a little bit to blend it. But that was it, not much. Camera's really not picking up the colors. Sorry. Using the same brush, you can see it's all kind of dry, so it has all those little points, which is going to be good for adding leaves. Sorry I had the camera set a little low so you're not going to see the top of the canvas. I thought I had it set right. Now what I'm doing is I'm dipping that brush into my paint, just the tip of the brush into the paint. I'm not putting the whole brush in. I'm not pushing into the paint. And when I hit the canvas, I'm just touching the canvas, so I leave these little teeny dots. And each dot is like a leaf. If I smush that brush into the canvas, I'm going to have smush marks. So I'm just touching the canvas and pulling away. Just touching it, pulling away. You don't want smudge marks, because if you keep working it, you're going to get smudges. So I'm just lightly touching the canvas and pulling away. And just grabbing different colors. I have yellows and reds on my palette there, so I'm just grabbing what I can or what I want and just lightly tapping it in. Not worrying too much right now. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to let this dry, and I'm going to keep adding more leaves to it, because if I keep adding leaves now, I'm going to get all these smudge marks, and I don't want smudges. I want leaves, little dots. But I'm going to add a lot more leaves to this too, so I'm just going to let this dry, and then I'll come back and I'll work it again. Now this is a different brush. You can see the tip on this is it's going to give me smaller dots than the other brush that I had. The other brush gave me bigger dots. This is going to give me smaller leaves, which I want. So I'm just dipping that brush into my paint and just touching the surface. I'm not squishing the brush into the canvas. I'm just touching it, lightly touching it. Now this paint that's on here already was yesterday, so this is the next day, so everything's kind of firmed up, so I'm not going to get that muddiness. So I'm just touching the canvas. Now the paint that I'm using, I did not use walnut oil. I didn't thin it down. It's just right out of the tube. Now I take the paint and I kind of spread it out on my palette there, and I just dip the brush into it, touch it just lightly, and then I come over and I just touch the canvas. Now you want to be real careful too. You don't want to be leaving these circles. You can see these little circles all over the place. That's not what nature looks like. It doesn't look like circles. So you got to be careful not to have circles all over your canvas. Right now I'm just trying to cover the whole area with tiny dots, and I'll come back and I'll work on those circles so we don't have circles all over the place. That wouldn't look right, wouldn't look natural. And a lot of this you're not going to be seeing anyway. 80% of what I'm putting on here now is that you won't see. This is all background. But you have to put it in because you don't know what's going to show when you start working on the rest of the canvas. So you want to have the whole background done so that when you do the rest of the canvas, you don't have to worry about the background because it's already done. Now I'm putting all these little teeny tiny dots in. They're all leaves. Just lightly touch that canvas. Don't smush the brush into the canvas because then you're just going to get one big blob. So I'm covering up a lot of what I did yesterday. Because yesterday's was just to put some color on the canvas. That's all it was. Now I'm using yellow. Tapping the yellow and going in over the brown and everything else that I have on the canvas. Clean off the brush because every time you touch that yellow and touch the canvas, you're going to pick up some of that brown. So each time I got to wipe off the brush, then touch the yellow, then go to the canvas. Before I go back to the yellow, I have to wipe off that brush because I'm picking up some of that brown. If you don't do that, it's going to get muddy on you. So I touch the canvas, I touch the yellow paint, and I touch the canvas once. And then I wipe it off. And then touch the yellow again, and touch the canvas. Now here's a close-up of what I did. Now 80% of what you're seeing, you will not see. This is all going to be covered over with tree trunks and trees and branches, and so all this you're not going to see. So that's why I'm giving you a last look at it. This is it. This is the last time you'll be seeing this, basically. Just marking a level line across my canvas. This is where the trees meet the water, the tree line. It's just to give me a rough idea so everything's straight. Almost cutting the canvas in half. It's 7.5 inches down from the top. That's where the trees meet the water. background noise is done. I call it background noise because it's all just stuff that has to be put in to fill up space. That's all we're doing is filling up space. Now we're going to start working on the foreground. All that's that's where all the details are going to be. This is just in the background. That's all it is, stuff. Sorry, I set my camera up and I forgot to turn the camera on. All I did was add paint for where I'm going to have these 3 trees. This is just to knock out the background color. This is the base coat. That's all this is. I'll add the detail later. Let it dry a bit. appreciate you tuning in. If you'd like to discover more about this art piece, please visit Salty Air Artistry's website. Thanks once again for tuning in. And if you do like this video, please like and subscribe because it helps me create more painting content for you. I appreciate it. Thank you. Have a wonderful day.